Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Gabin from Design Tribe, and in today's video we are going to be designing this simple flyer in Photoshop. Let's get straight to it. First thing we want to do is to create a new project, and for this project we are going to be using a width of 1000 pixels and a height of 1000 pixels, and our resolution will remain at 300 pixels per inch, and I'm just going to click on OK. Now first thing we want to do is to create our background color, and for that I'm going to be using a gradient, a blue gradient. So I'll just navigate to my gradients here and I'll select a blue color like this. And once I select that blue color, I may want to modify it a little to give it a darker tone. So I'm just going to bring down this to this point, double click here and bring this down to this point a little like this. And I think I'm happy with this tone. I'll just click on OK, and now I'm going to begin to import the images that I used for this design. So just drag this image and drop into my design like this, and once that image is dropped, I'm just going to maximize it, increase the size of the image to something like this, and I think this position is perfect. And once that is done, I'm going to change my blend mode to soft light like this. And once I've put the soft light as my blend mode, I may want to darken this top part a little more. So I'm just going to create a curves adjustment layer like that, and I'll just bring down the brightness a little more to something like this. Yep, and I think that is okay for me. Now the next thing I want to do is to bring in the other image. Since this is talking about purpose, I'm going to bring in a compass, because a compass signifies direction and purpose talks about direction. So I'm going to go to my files and I'm going to locate this compass and I'll bring it to my design. And once the compass is brought into my design, first thing I want to do is to eliminate the background color. So I just click on select subject and I'll allow Photoshop to do its calculations and eliminate the background for me. So once that selection is made, I'm just going to create a mask around it and move it to this position like this, and I'll zoom in a little more like that. Reposition this. Once I have zoomed in like this, I'm going to change the blend mode to soft light, and I'm going to use my brush tool. Make sure my foreground color is black, increase the size of my brush, make the brush soft, go to the setting and reduce the hardness to 0, and I'll zoom this out so we can see. Oops, let me take this back to the top. I'll just zoom out like this, and then select my brush tool. Make sure I've clicked on the layer of the mask. So I'll click on the mask layer, and then I'm just going to paint around here like this, just to see that this is blended in softly. So just paint like that. We want to move this to this point a little like that, and I think that is okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do now is to create my purpose text around here. So I'm going to use this Go Bold font. Make sure I choose the regular, Go Bold regular, and change my color to white. I'm just going to type in purpose. So I'm going to be typing the letters one by one to achieve this effect which I'm going to be creating now. So I'm just going to type P, and before typing that, make sure it's in caps lock. So I'll type P, Ctrl T, increase the size to something like this. For this to have this kind of effect, you need a bold font, a bold tall font. So I'm just going to type P like that, Control J, I'll move it to the corner, and I'll type, change it to U. And once I change it to U, I'm going to bring the U below the P and make sure they overlap a little like that. And I'll press Ctrl J on my U, bring it to the right, and I'll bring it under the previous U, double click on it, change it to an arrow, and I'll press Ctrl J on my arrow, bring it under the previous arrow, double click on it and change it to a P. And once it's changed to a P, I'll press Ctrl T for transform, and I'll move it to the edge like this, and I'll create a copy of the P, bring it below, and I'll put, double click on it, and I'll change that to O like that, Ctrl T, and I'll move it to the edge, and always make sure that they overlap. For you to have the effects, they must overlap. So I'm going to create a copy of the O like this, bring it beneath the previous O, and change this to an S like that, Ctrl T, and I'll move it to this end, and I make sure it overlaps slightly like that. And now I'll still create a copy of the S, and now I'll bring it under the other S, bring this ahead like this, and double click here, change it to an E. So our purpose text has been created. Now you want to make sure that everything is aligned perfectly. So for that, I'm just going to create a guide like this, position it under. You see this arrow is slightly above the other line, so I'm just going to bring this down to ensure that everything is on the same line. This S is slightly beneath, so I think we are good at this point. So to clear the guides, I'll just press Ctrl H or Command H on my keyboard. So now I'm just going to be adding the shadows to this individual text. So I'm just going to go right to the beginning where I have my P. I'm going to create a layer in between the P and the U, because the shadow effects that we are going to create has to be applied on this, the letter that comes after each letter. So I want the shadow of the P to be on the U, the shadow of the R of the shadow of, I want the shadow of the P to be on the U, the shadow of the U to be on the arrow, the shadow of the arrow to be on the P, and so forth. So I'm just going to come here now. I will make a selection of the U text by holding Control or Command on my keyboard, and I click on this thumbnail button here, and I'm going to paint in the shadow of the P on this U. How am I going to do that? I'm just going to use my brush tool. Make sure it's a soft brush and your brush size is reduced, and if you cannot see the tip of your brush, you just turn off the caps lock on your keyboard and maybe increase the size of the brush a little like this, and you just dab around like this. Okay, maybe I change my color to black before doing that. Once your color is black, you just dab like that. You see that there is a kind of shadow that is applied on the letter U, and now this selection you've created constrains the shadow, so it's just applied only on the letter U and it doesn't go out of the letter U. Okay, once that is done, you just deselect, you go now in between U and arrow, you create another layer in between them. Now we want to paint the shadow of the U letter on the arrow letter. So what are we going to do? You're just going to press Control Command Control Command on your keyboard, and you click on this text icon here. Once you click on that thumbnail button there, you now use your brush and now you paint. Now since we are painting the shadow of the U, we will have to paint throughout the length of the arrow, because the U spans from the top of the arrow to the bottom. So we are going to paint like this. Just going to paint something like this. So at this point you realize that we may have to modify the position of the other letters by just shifting them slightly like this to create more space for the arrow, because it seems as if the arrow was too close to this U. So I'm just going to reposition it like that, delete this layer and create a new layer like that. Now I'm going to hold Control or Command on my keyboard and click here and use my brush. I'm going to brush this in like this, not too close. I'm going to brush a little far from there. Since it's a soft brush, it's just going to apply that softly on my arrow, and that is it. Now I'm going to bring the P a little close to the arrow so they overlap. You don't want them to overlap too much, and I'm just going to create a layer in between them like that. Hold Control Command on my keyboard and I click to make a selection of the P. So when I paint in the shadow of the arrow, the shadow is constrained to the selection of the P. So I'm just going to come here. Now we'll just dab here like this on the areas where the two letters overlap like that. Okay, when that is done, now go to my O, bring in O a little like that. Okay, and I'll create a layer in between O and P, and I'm going to hold Command or Control on my keyboard and I'm going to click here to make a selection, and I'll just repeat the process like that. You see, I'm not going to paint right down because the P doesn't extend right down, it doesn't overlap. So you want to paint on just the areas that overlap on the text layer beneath it. So now I'm going to go to my S. I think S has to be above E like that. In between my S and my O, I'm going to create a new layer like that, and I'll toggle my S in a little more so it overlaps well. And now I'm going to use my Command or Control. I click like that to make a selection. Use my black text, black brush, select this layer, and I'm going to paint like that. Paint even down here like that. And now in between the E and the S, I'm going to do the same thing, create a new layer, and maybe I'll bring in my E a little more and Control, and I select my E like that. Use my brush, select the layer above, and I'll just paint like this. Perfect. So once that is done, I'm just going to select everything like this, and I'll create a group for them like that, so I can easily control them. So once that is done, I'm just going to type in the next text that I had above here, living a purposeful life. I'm just going to select everything like that. I come back to my Photoshop, change my color to white, select my text tool. Here I'm going to use another font, Montserrat thin. So I'm going to use a thin version or light version of the Montserrat text, and I'll just click here, reduce my font size to something like 11, and I'll just paste in that. Select everything, go to characters, and I'll make everything bold like that. So once that is done, I'll just bring it down somewhere here. That is the theme of the program, living a purposeful life. So once that is created like that, I'm now going to add some lights beneath here, orange color. So I'm just going to go back to my layers. So I'll go to Windows, layers, and above this layer I'm just going to create another layer like this, and can pick the color, create a yellowish color like this, bring it down, increase the size of my brush to something like this, zoom out, and I'll just click around here like that. You don't want to make it too much. Okay, once that is created, I'm going to use my shape tool, rectangular shape tool, change the color to white, and I'm going to create a rectangle like this. Once that rectangle is created like that, I'm going to transform it, Ctrl C, rotate it down like this, and I bring it down here. We don't want it to be too slanted. I'll just position it somewhere here like this. Okay, and I have a feeling that the compass here is hidden, so I may want to change my blend mode to something else. Okay, something soft light. Then I may modify the brightness of this layer. I don't want it to be too dark again. Yeah, I think something like this is better. Okay, so at this point what I did was to write the time. It's 2 p.m. Sunday, 14 January 2024. I'm just going to create this using my rectangular text tool like this. Just create that, and I use my text to change my color to black and type in 2 p.m. 2 p.m. like this. Bring this to the top like that, and I'm going to make this Montserrat medium, and I reduce the font size to about 10. Position it here like this. Ctrl T, select this layer, rectangle layer. Oops, it's like it's beneath this one. I'll bring it above like that. Ctrl T, and I'll increase it, modify it to something like this. Okay, 2:00 p.m. I'll just bring this here, 00 p.m. Ctrl T, just extend that to that position. Now I'll do Ctrl J, move it to this position, change my text color to white like this. I'll just type in January, I say 14 January 2024 like that. And now I'll just select everything together. Let me first of all position this here. I'll select everything together like this. Ctrl T, and I reduce the size. position it just in the middle like that. Okay, once that is done, next thing was to bring in the logo of the organization and location, phone numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here, bring this down a little and navigate to where I have the logo of the organization, I think the white version. Just drag and drop here and reduce the size like this, and I'll just create a white bar by the logo like this. Now I'm just going to type in the name of the organization. Academy Fellowship Fellowship has double L, Cameroon, like that. Control A. Nope. I'll just select the text layer like this, and I'll reduce the font size to about 5, like that, and I'll bring it to this position. Control C. I'll drop it down a little again, like this. Once it's positioned there, now I'm going to put in the location icon. Okay, this is it. I'll just drag and drop it in here, reduce the size, something like this, like that. And now I'm going to change the color. Just double click on it, use my paint bucket tool. Once I select the paint bucket, I'll make sure my foreground color is white, and I click on it, Control S, and I go back to my project. The color has been changed like that. Control C, I'll reduce the size a little. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just duplicate this font here, and I position it here, and I type in, so they have the same font size. So just say ACF my 3 Bamenda. Queen, like that. Now just bring this down to this position. The next thing I'm going to bring in is the contact information. So I'll just navigate to where I have my shapes. So just go to shapes, and I'll go to my history, just drag this and drop here, reduce the size to this, and position it here, reduce it to that. Control J, position it here. Now just type in phone number +237 123 123. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to put the real numbers. I'm just put in random numbers. 123 123 123, like that. You see everything is well aligned. And now I'm just going to bring in the social media handles of the organization. So first I'll bring in the website. drag this and drop here, reduce the size to something like this, and once that is adjusted, I'm going to select it again, double click here like this to change the color to black, Ctrl T, reduce the size like this. We want to drop it down. Okay, once that is done, I'll just change my font color to black, and I'll type in afecam.org. Like that. Change the fonts here to bold. Bold. That. I want to reduce the size of this a little more, like that. Okay, so I'll just bring in my Facebook icon, just drag and drop into my project file like that. Reduce the size, something like that. Ctrl T, make sure everything is about the same size. Then Ctrl J, bring it here, type in Academy Fellowship Cameroon, like that. Then close up the text using Alt and left arrow on your keyboard, like that. Then going to bring in the YouTube icon, just that, and just drag down like this, position it here, reduce the size a little, just reposition it like that. And now I'm going to create a copy of this again and put in the YouTube channel name, afecam.tv, like that. So once that is done, I want to increase the size of my compass a little, so it's a little more visible, like that. Position it to the sides, like that. And now all I will do is just to group everything together like this. Group everything, convert to a smart object, and I will head to a camera raw filter. I'm going to be doing some color grading and some sharpening. So once camera raw is loaded like this, just going to warm it up a little like this, bring down my highlights, brighten up the shadows. So these settings just depend on the kind of look you want to achieve. So I always just do slight modifications on my design like that, and click on OK. So that is how I realized this in Photoshop. I hope this was helpful to you. If this was helpful, please do well to support me by liking and sharing this video. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can subscribe, for I produce these videos every single week. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Bye bye.